Muy buenas tardes a todos y bienvenidos a este evento organizado por la Federación de AMPAs de Euskadi. Quiero dar las gracias en primer lugar a la señora viceconsejera de Educación por su asistencia a este acto, así como al resto de representantes de los partidos políticos de Euskadi, aquí presentes. También quiero agradecer muy especialmente su asistencia a los miembros de las juntas directivas del resto de federaciones de asociaciones de AMPAs de Euskadi. Hoy están aquí representadas las AMPAs de todos los centros del sistema educativo vasco. Por último, pero no menos importante, saludar a los profesores, madres y padres de alumnos de los centros cuyas AMPAs están asociadas a FAPAE. Como sabéis, FAPAE nació para estimular la colaboración entre las AMPAs asociadas, para compartir las prioridades y preocupaciones de nuestros padres con el resto de federaciones de AMPAs y para trasladarlas a la Administración Educativa Vasca, aportando también soluciones y experiencias. Creo que poco a poco lo vamos consiguiendo. Aunque la actividad de FAPAE se centra, como es lógico, en Euskadi, también mantenemos una presencia constante en nuestra confederación COFAPA y somos un miembro muy activo dentro de los socios de la European Parents Association. El evento de hoy se enmarca dentro de nuestro objetivo de dar a conocer iniciativas innovadoras de éxito dentro del ámbito educativo mundial. Hoy contamos con la presencia de Talana Bradley. La profesora Bradley ocupó su primer puesto como directora de centro en 2005 en una escuela pública del Bronx de Nueva York. Desde 2008 es la directora de una escuela pública de Brooklyn, que adoptó el modelo de educación diferenciada, modelo presente también en algunos de los centros cuyas AMPAs están asociadas a FAPAE, aunque en nuestro caso estamos hablando de centros concertados en lugar de centros públicos. Actualmente la escuela que dirige la profesora Bradley cuenta con 400 alumnas. Uno de los principales objetivos de esta escuela es garantizar la formación de las alumnas con menos recursos económicos, apoyándolas y orientándolas para que puedan llegar a la universidad. Los resultados están ahí. Esta escuela consiguió en 2011 la máxima calificación otorgada por el Departamento de Educación de la ciudad de Nueva York. Y el año pasado, el 100% de sus alumnas accedieron a la educación superior, en un país donde solo el 24% de los nacidos en zonas deprimidas gozan de este tipo de educación. Espero que la conferencia de hoy sea interesante para todos, mueva la reflexión, estimule el debate y a su finalización tengamos la oportunidad de charlar e intercambiar impresiones. Ms. Bradley, welcome to the Basque Country and welcome to Bilbao. Thank you for giving this conference in this event organized by FAPAE. I hope you will enjoy your short visit to our city. Thank you very much.
Buenos días. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. This has been quite an honor. This is our last city in Spain, so my husband and I are a little sad to be leaving and going back home tomorrow. So I'm the principal of the Young Women's Leadership School of Brooklyn. We opened this school in 2008, and it was the fourth of all-girls public schools in New York City to open in over 30 years at the time. I did not grow up going to single-sex schools. I went to a co-ed Catholic school until high school. And at that time, I purposefully decided not to go to the all-girls school right across the street from my house. I wanted to be with the boys for high school, so I did not go there. Instead, I went to a large public high school in Brooklyn, New York, and I saw there it was a good public school. However, I was able to visit other public schools during high school. And I found it very sad and depressing that there were many schools that I did not consider good schools. Schools that weren't safe for kids, schools where many students were not learning. In New York today, the average graduation rate from high school is 60%. And so at that time, I began to think about the fact that every student, whether or not they're parents can afford a private or a Catholic education, deserve to have an excellent education. And so not yet, but I started to think about what I could do to help this and make this an option for all kids, because no parent wants to send their child to a bad school, right? And yet we see it happen, at least in New York, we see it happen every day. So I designed a school that would be a good quality choice for families. I went through a principal leadership program, a training program, and as part of that program, they send you to a school for 1 year to study under an experienced principal who has a successful school. And I was matched to the Young Women's Leadership School of East Harlem, and that was in 2004. And when I got my match, we didn't have a choice. I was very sad. Because as I told you, I never went to an all-girls school. I didn't see the point. I didn't think it was necessary. And so being that I was going to spend the next year there learning, I did a lot of research about the school. I read a lot, and the literature and the research, it was excellent, but I'm usually very skeptical, so I still wanted to see it. I wanted to see what the big deal was about this school. And for me, it took about 2 hours after the students came in September for me to completely fall in love with the model. I remember looking into classrooms and listening to the lessons that the teachers gave and the questions that the students were asking. And I started to think about myself as a teacher. I used to teach social studies. I taught social studies or history for 7 years. And what I realized being in that all-girls environment was that as a teacher, I had ignored my female students. I didn't do it on purpose, and I didn't even realize that I was doing it, but in my class, it seemed like the boys were more interested in history. And they were a little harder to control. I don't know, they had a lot more energy. And so I always, when I planned my lessons, I was always thinking about what can I do to keep the boys engaged? How am I going to make sure that they are interested and they are learning? And while the girls in my classes did just fine, they all passed their state exams, they passed the class, I know that I didn't push them. I don't think that I inspired them. And being in this all-girls environment, I saw the power that when you remove one sex from the equation, you can just focus on that group. And so from that time, I decided that I wanted to bring this school to Brooklyn. So I had the opportunity 4 years later in 2008 to open my school now. And again, at the heart of it was bringing a high-quality education to families in Brooklyn. So in New York, it is legal, it has never been illegal to have an all-girls or an all-boys public school. And I think that's very important. While our first school, the Young Women's Leadership School of East Harlem, opened in 1996, there was a lot of opposition. There were people fighting and saying that this is not right, we are discriminating, it goes against feminism. So we had to do a lot of fighting at that time, but it was never illegal. So the government did back the fact that we were opening these schools. However, in 2006, the United States Department of Education published the final amendment saying that as long as schools were substantially equal, single-sex schools could be open. You could have all-girls schools and you could have all-boys schools. One of the most important things for me as a principal and thinking about this movement of single-sex education in public schools is that it has to be a choice. Parents need to have the choice to send their child to an all-girls or a boys or an all-boys school if they choose to do so. My husband and I, we have 2 sons, and they go to co-ed public schools. So we didn't make that choice for them, at least not right now. But we do think that it should be an option, it should be available to them. Because if you don't allow public schools to be single gender, in my opinion, you are discriminating. You're saying that if you can't afford it, then you can't have that option. And I don't think that that's fair because the quality of education, sometimes, not all the times, right? But the quality of education can be very good in a single gender environment. We found when we opened, I'm always amazed when I think about why parents sent their daughters to my school. I looked very young. We had no students. We had 4 classrooms in a building with another high school that was co-ed and another school that was also co-ed with grades 6 through 12. So we had the track record of the other schools in our network, but really it was just a chance that they were taking. But I think it speaks to the fact that people wanted this option. And so when they saw it, they were willing to take a chance. So our flagship school in East Harlem, aren't they cute? They're cute, like the kids. Our flagship school in East Harlem started this movement, as I said, in 1996. And today there are over 120 public single-sex girls' schools and boys' schools in the whole country, and 20 in New York City. Admissions, the way that we take students is really through choice. We do look at their academic records, we look at their grades and their attendance and punctuality. However, the most important thing for us as a school is that the parents and the students want to be there. Even if a child is extremely bright, but she does not want to come to our school, we find that it's not good to force kids and their families into a situation where they're not comfortable. So while I don't think that all girls education is the best thing for every child, I've seen that it really should be an option because the families want it, and some of the young ladies want it as well. We take students from all different ability levels, all different academic levels. We have students with special needs in our school, many students who come to us speaking no English, and we see our job and our responsibility to provide whatever services it is that they need in order to learn and to graduate from high school and to go to college. We have found through our experience that students who are first-generation college-going students do very well in our schools, where their parents didn't have the opportunity to go to college or university. They get the opportunity with us, and they have been excelling. So let's talk a little about the culture and what it's like to live in our school. Yes, it is all girls. I'm always amazed. Every year we get a phone call in September that says, "Oh, my daughter's coming to your school." And I'll say, "Great." And I'll say, "It's all girls?" "Yes, it's all girls." So even though it is a choice program, we do get a lot of families that don't really understand what we do, don't even understand that it's all girls. Sometimes at that point, thankfully, the Department of Education will allow them to change if they really don't want to be in that environment. But sometimes they stay and then they love it, or they leave and then they come back, and we take them. The students wearing uniform, we think it's really important that they don't focus on what they look like or what sneakers they have or they don't have. We just want them to come in and learn, so everyone wears a uniform. That the parents do have to pay for, but if the family cannot afford it, we sponsor them and we pay for that. In the United States, there's something called Title I funding, which means families that live at or below the poverty level, the government believes that it takes a little more money to educate them, in the same way that families that are wealthier need to be educated. And so they give extra funding if a certain percentage of your students receive free or reduced lunch. Yes? Okay, and that's called Title I. So since we've opened, we've been a Title I school, about 80% of our students receive free or reduced lunch, which means they live at or below the poverty level. We personalize the environment. This morning I met with a reporter and she asked, "This sounds wonderful, but can't you do the same things in a co-ed school? Why does it need to be separate?" And my response was, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be separate, but for us, we find that we are better able to meet the needs of girls in an environment where we don't also have to meet the needs of boys. Because it's a lot of work, right? At that age, they think they know everything, and they know a lot, right? Young people, you know a lot, but there's still so much to do between the age of 10, 11, and the time that you go to college. And so when you add both genders into the school, I found, because I was a principal of a co-ed school before, I found that the issues are just, they grow exponentially. Right? So just having the girls allows us to focus on just what the girls need. We have a program in our school called Copper Angels. Copper, that's how we pronounce it. It's not spelled correctly, I'm sorry. But copper for us are the values that we think are important for our students. We call them our habits of being. And the C stands for confident and compassionate. We believe that our students should be confident, they should be able to speak up for themselves, but they also need to be compassionate. They need to care about one another, they need to care about their community and the world. We believe that they should be open-minded, which is the O, so they should try new things. Sometimes we find that they're not willing to try new things because they're just comfortable with what they're used to, but we make a conscious effort to expose them to different things. When we first started and we would bring them to different places, oftentimes they didn't want to try the food. And they would say, that's nasty. So we had to teach them instead. Now, even to this day, they say, how interesting if they don't like something. So that was part of the work to make sure that they would open their minds to things that they weren't used to. The P stands for perseverant. We have found that our students often come to us thinking that either you're born smart or you're not. And we do a lot of teaching about being perseverant and showing effort and trying again. That no one is born knowing calculus, at least I don't think so. But our students need to understand that you have to keep trying, that they are no different than any other child, but they have to keep trying and making the effort. And in return, our teachers provide multiple opportunities for students to learn different things, different concepts. So it's a lot of work for the teachers, because if a child doesn't get it the first time, they see it as their responsibility to make sure that they get it the next time, or the time after that, or the time after that. We do whatever it takes to make sure that they're learning. And the R stands for responsible and respectful. So we have angels, the adults in our building, we call angels sometimes, because there are some children that come to us and they just need a lot more attention than the average student. And so quietly, an adult adopts, but not really, adopts a child and takes care of whatever it is that child needs. It might be school supplies, it might be a quiet place to work after school, or lunchtime to do their homework with the adults. And the child typically doesn't know who that person is. You just make an extra effort to make sure that the child does well. We also have advisory. Advisory is the place that we say is our guarantee that no child falls behind, that every child is known well by at least one adult in the building. So every teacher has a small group of students that he or she is responsible for, and they meet 3 times a day. We have to meet 3 times a day because through our research we found that girls need to feel connected. If they don't like you or they think you don't like them, they don't want to learn. Sometimes they'll say, why, you're failing that class, what's going on? And they'll say, I don't like her, and talking about their teacher. So you have to make sure that they like you and respect you. You don't have to be like overly nice, but you have to make sure that you've earned their respect. It's a mutual thing. And your advisor is your advocate. That's the adult in the building that no matter what is always in that student's corner. Sometimes a teacher might come to me if a child is punished for doing something wrong, and they'll say, oh, but please, can't she go on this trip? And I love it because, I still say no most times, because no, if she's done something wrong, there are consequences, but I love that someone is always pushing for her and advocating to give her one more chance. So that's her advisor. They meet first thing in the morning when they come to school for 5 minutes. We call it morning centering, where they go to the advisor. They show them their planner. Every student gets a planner or a planner where she writes down her homework and any assignments that she has due and reminders. And the parents have to sign that planner every night. Now, we then check to make sure the parent signed the planner. We don't expect that the parent checks the homework and makes sure it's correct, but we do expect that if it says she had math homework, you saw something in math, some numbers. And this is one of the ways that we communicate, and the advisor checks that every day. And then on the student's report card, they actually get a grade for that. So it's really the parent's grade. And we also send home a folder every week with all communication that we need to communicate to the families. And that also the student gets a grade for, whether or not that comes back every week, signed by the parent. Because we want to make sure that we're in constant communication, and it has to work both ways. We also do phone calls and email, but the planner and the weekly folder are two of the ways that we make sure we stay in contact. So the advisors also meet with the students for one class period per day. During that time, they do team building activities. They set academic goals and sometimes social goals, depending on what the child is working on. They do health and wellness lessons. We think it's just as important that they make healthy choices in the food that they eat, in the relationships that they have, in the decisions that they make. So in advisory, the teachers help them to learn that. And we are a college prep school. So everything that we do is focused on that. When a teacher wants to start a club or an activity, we often think about whether or not it will give the young ladies an advantage on their college application. So we try and think about it from the minute that the students come into our school from 6th grade until they leave us. Because we found that if you wait until 11th grade, which is what happens in a lot of schools in the city, it's too late. It's too late by then. They already need to know that they're going to college. They need to be thinking about what it takes to get there and what they need to do to have many choices. Again, I said already that we take all ability levels. And so in middle school, when the students first come to us, most of our classes are heterogeneously grouped. So there are students from all different ability levels. One of the reasons we did that is because we found that girls sometimes can just do well in school if they're nice and quiet. And it's sad because they might be nice and quiet, but if they don't have the skills, they're not going to be successful later on. And so when our students come to us, some might have very good grades, but they're lacking, they have a lot of gaps that we need to fill in. So we group everyone heterogeneously. We find that they're able to learn from one another. And then later on in high school, some of the students might take advanced classes in math and science and English. But for middle school, we keep them all together. We do offer advanced classes. We offer, in the United States, it's called advanced placement, where they can get college credit in high school. In addition, some of our students go and they take classes at the university after school, and they get credit that can then be transferred when they do go to college or university. Not just our seniors, but all of our students do internships, sometimes as early as 9th or 10th grade, where they work in different companies alongside professionals so that they can see what their options are. They can see the possibilities. We found that in 6th grade or 5th grade when they come in, many students say, if you ask them what they want to be when they grow up, they say a teacher or a doctor or a nurse. They don't really have many different ideas, and there are so many careers out there, even careers that don't even exist today yet. And so we try to, with technology, I don't even know half the things that they do, but we try and expose them to as much as possible, especially careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So that's one of our goals as a school. And to do all of this, we are exhausted. By June, I try not to bother my teachers at all. I don't ask them to do anything extra because they work so hard. It's so much work to catch students up and to provide all of the opportunities that they need to be successful. But I think that's one of the reasons why it works, why our school does so well, is because the adults are not just the teachers and the administrators, but the secretaries. We have a parent coordinator, the custodial staff. Everyone is working hard to make sure that the girls have whatever it is that they need to be successful. So we're tired. I have a short video that I'd like to show you. We are a public school, so most of our funding comes from the government. However, we're part of a network of schools called the Young Women's Leadership Network, and every year they do a breakfast to raise money for their schools. They pay for our college counselor, which is a full-time position, and that college counselor's responsibility is to make sure that not only do the girls get into college, but they understand what it takes to make it through, that the families and the students understand how to pay for college. They help them get scholarships and financial aid, and they work with them from the time they're 10 or 11 years old right up until they leave us, and even after that, they still come back. So the Young Women's Leadership Network puts together a video to show people why they should give money. It shows the stories of some of our students. Every year they honor different students, and so I'd like to share it with you.